Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how we can build an automated client onboarding system in Make.com. Let's do it. Okay, so essentially what we're going to be building today are two separate client onboarding scenarios that we're going to use in tandem. The first is going to look at Pipedrive, okay, which is our CRM, and every time we move a deal into this invoice sent deal stage, we're going to trigger our automation. And we're going to automatically create a Stripe invoice and send it to that client, okay? It's all going to happen automatically once we move that deal into the invoice sent stage in Pipedrive. The second half of our workflow is going to look something like this. And what this is going to do is when that customer, when that client pays the invoice, we're going to be looking for payments, new payments in Stripe, and that is going to trigger our automation here. And so what we're going to do is when they pay, we're going to create a Calendly link for an intro call. We're going to type up an intro email to that new client, and we're going to send that to them. We're also going to update our Pipedrive deal to 1. Okay, so we're going to close this deal out as 1 because the invoice got paid by our client. And then finally, we're going to create a new Slack channel for that client, and so they can join that, and we'll send them an invite link in the email. And so we can get in there and start messaging them once they pay their invoice. Okay, so this is all going to happen automatically. I'm going to walk you through every step right now, step for step. So if you're confused or excited to watch this video, buckle in. Let's hop right into this thing. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I have my Pipedrive set up. Again, you don't have to use Pipedrive specifically if you're building out a similar workflow. You could use whatever CRM you're using. But let me show you just kind of what I have set up here. In Pipedrive. So essentially I have a deal. I'm going to call it Automatio deal. All right. I've attached a price to this deal. Okay. In Pipedrive, you can add products, so you can standardize this if you want. But for now, I'm just going to attach an amount of $24.95 to this deal. All right. I have a contact associated with this deal. And that contact is me. And I have an email attached to this client. Potential client. And then I also have an organization attached to this deal called Automatio LLC. I've given it a fake address and assigned me as the owner. Okay, so that's what I have set up here. Now back in our deal pipeline, you can see we've got 4 fake little deal stages here. And we want to trigger this workflow when a deal is in this invoice sent field. So whenever I come into this deal and I update it to invoice sent, okay, I want to trigger the automation. So that's how I have Pipedrive set up. Let me come back into Make now and create this trigger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new module, and I'm going to search for Pipedrive. All right. And then I'm going to choose this new deal event, instant asset. That's just going to watch for new Pipedrive events. You want to connect to your Pipedrive account here or whatever CRM you're using. All right. And then for the event action, I'm just going to choose updated. So anytime a deal is updated, we're going to trigger this webhook. Okay, so we've got a webhook here. They attach it for us automatically. We're going to hit OK. All right, cool. Okay, so I'm just going to run this here, and I'm going to go and trigger this back in Pipedrive. I'm just going to move this around and see if we trigger anything. And perfect. It looks like we are. We're pulling stuff in here. And so we can kind of see our current information of our deal, and then our previous information, and then a bunch of fields that we're going to have to use here. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to gather some other information from Pipedrive that we're going to have to use later on in our workflow to build our Stripe invoice. Okay. So first thing we need to do is we need to get a person. All right. And so I'm going to drop that in. Again, you want to connect to Pipedrive. And then your person ID is just going to be from our first module here, which is attached to that deal. Okay, so that Automatio deal, that fake deal I have, has a person associated with it, and that person ID is 25. Okay, so I'm going to drop that in there. And then that'll give me a bunch of people information I can use. I want to do the same thing for an organization. So I want to get an organization because I want to pull in that address for our invoice associated with that organization. And so I'm just going to scroll down here and find my org ID, which is going to be right, where are you? Here you are, organization, okay? So that organization, Automatio LLC, has a Pipedrive ID of 21. And so I'm just going to pull that in here. And so now when I run this, and I go back to Pipedrive, and I, again, move this deal stage, we'll trigger it. And then you can see I'm getting a bunch of additional person or contact information, and then a bunch of organization information, including address and things like that. Okay. So now we have all the data we need to build our Stripe invoice, and that's what we're going to do in the next step. Okay, so step number 2 is we're going to drop in a Stripe module, and we're going to create a customer. Okay, and so essentially, remember, the idea is when we move this deal from demo scheduled to invoice sent, we want to essentially make an invoice for somebody and send them that in Stripe. Okay, we want that to happen automatically. And so to do that, we need to actually create a new customer in Stripe to send it to send the invoice to. Okay, so you want to connect your Stripe account. Now, something I'll call out here is inside of Stripe, we can do all of this that you're going to have to do in test mode. And so there'll be this little toggle up here. You just want to turn that on while you're testing. And then if you want to connect to Stripe, if you've never done it before, you're going to come to Developers, API Keys, and then you're actually going to come down here and create a restricted key, give it a name, and then you want to toggle all of these permissions over here all the way down the page to write permissions, okay? Just so you have access to everything. And then you're going to do all of that. You're going to hit Create Key, and then that will be the restricted API key that you plug in back in Make when you're adding your connection, okay? And so that's all you have to do there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a new customer. And so we need to associate an email with this customer. And that email we're going to pull in from Pipedrive, okay? And we're going to get that from our Get a Person module. So this is why we had to pull in our Get a Person module, because then we can attach their email. So I'm going to come down here and pull in that client's email. Name, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come down to my Get a Person module right here. And I'm going to attach the name of the customer in this field. Phone number, you can attach that if you want. And then address is very important. What we want to do here is we want to pull in our address from our Get an Organization module. All right, so line 1 is just going to be, let's see, 123 Sesame Street. All right, so I'm going to combine those. City, well, that's going to be broken down here as well. It's Kings Park. Country will be USA, and that is listed here. Postal code, that is listed right here in our postal code field. And then state. So we're just mapping address fields here. And again, this is just so we have this for our invoice, like where we actually address our invoice to. And this is going to be in New York. Okay, so we're going to hit OK. And so that's going to create our Stripe customer. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually create a price inside of Stripe that we can charge these people. And to do that, we're going to create an invoice item. Okay, so we're going to drop in a create invoice item. Again, make sure you're connected to your correct test API key. Customer ID, we're going to pull in from our create a customer. So whenever we create a customer in Stripe, Stripe's going to attach a customer ID to that customer. And so we want to create a invoice item for this new customer. Our amount or our price is going to be a total amount in this example. And our amount, I'll show you again in Pipedrive, we have mapped to our Pipedrive deal. Okay, so there'll be a field inside of our Pipedrive module that we can map our amount from. So I'm just going to go find that. And this is going to be from our new deal event, so we can get our deal information. And I've got this field right here named value. You can see it's $2,495. Now, very importantly here, when we do this, this right here is going to be in cents. So if my deal amount is $2,495, well, here it's going to be $24.95. So we got to do a little bit of math here to get the correct amount into our Stripe invoice item. Okay, so we're just going to come here. We're going to multiply by 100. Right? And so that'll load that in perfectly. Currency, it's just going to be US dollar. Let's make sure that's mapping correctly. So we'll just get US dollar in here. Perfect, USD. Description, we can add a description if we want. I don't think we really have to here. Okay, so that is good there. We'll hit OK. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to actually create our invoice. Okay, and so we're going to drop in another Stripe module. And this one is going to be create an invoice. All right, make sure you're connected to the right account. We're going to create an invoice for our customer that we just made. Okay, and so we're just going to map our customer ID field there. We're not going to charge them automatically. We want to send them an invoice. We're going to give them 7 days until it's due, until they have to pay. Our description, you can leave this blank if you want. I'm just going to add in maybe the name of the deal, just so, you know, there's a little bit of detail on the invoice. You can spruce this up if you want, but I'm just going to keep it simple for now. So I'll just do Automatio LLC deal. All right, so that's looking good there. Now the last thing I want to do is, and this is kind of important for later on in the workflows, I want to add a little bit of metadata. And essentially all this does is it creates more information that you can attach to this invoice so that later on in our workflow, we can reference that information. So we can kind of store it here in the background. And so I'm just going to give this metadata a name. It's going to be called Pipedrive Deal ID. And then I'm going to go grab the ID of our deal right here from our first module back here. So I'm just going to feed in this 15 ID, which is the ID of our actual deal in Pipedrive. And again, the reason we're doing this is because later on in our second workflow, we're going to need to pull some deal ID from Pipedrive, and we're going to use this hidden field in Stripe to access it. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there for now. This all makes sense in a second. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch this pending invoice items behavior to include. Okay, and essentially this will just make sure that our price is in there. All right, cool. So we'll hit OK. And we're getting close. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to add another Stripe module. Okay, so we're going to do, this might be a record. We've got 4 in a row. We're going to have 5 in a row here at the very end. So, and this is where we're going to finalize our draft invoice. Okay, and so here we're just going to map our invoice ID from the invoice we just made back in our last module. Okay, so map your invoice ID. That's just going to finalize it so that we can then send it. We're going to hit OK. All right, and so now we're looking pretty good. So now if we ran this, we would create a new customer in Stripe. We'd create a price for that customer to pay of $24.95. We'd then make an invoice for that customer with that price. We'd pull in all that good address information and name and all that good stuff. And then we'd finalize our draft invoice. The last thing we want to do is we want to actually send that invoice automatically to our client. Okay, right now, if we ended it right here, we'd have to manually go into Stripe and we'd have to actually send the invoice ourselves. Okay, so we'd have to come to customers, find the invoice and hit send. What I want to do is I want to automatically send it. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an API call in Stripe. And the URL that I want to do is /v1 invoices / then I want our invoice ID. Okay, so that's going to be pulling in dynamically. So every new invoice we send, we're going to pull that in. And then /send. All right, and then I'm going to change our method to post. Okay, and that's all you need to do. So now every time we create an invoice, we will send that invoice automatically to the email associated with that customer that we've just created. Okay, so we're getting close here. I'm going to hit save. And then the last thing I want to do here is just a little filter up here at the front, just to make sure we don't fire this automation every time we update a deal in Pipedrive. And what I mean by that is this first Pipedrive module is going to look up every change of every deal in Pipedrive. But I don't want to fire this every time. I don't want to create a new customer every time we update a deal in any capacity in Pipedrive. I only want to fire this trigger when we move the deal from demo scheduled to invoice sent. Okay, and I'll show you another view of this. I only want to fire this when we move this deal from stage 3 to stage 4. It's the only time we want to do it. If I move this to another deal, I don't want it to fire. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a filter here. And it's going to be only fire when moved to invoice sent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go grab my current stage ID, okay, which is stage ID 5. All right, so stage ID 5 is just the code I have for invoice sent stage. So anytime that stage in our current field here, pulling from Pipedrive, is greater than our previous right here. So we can see we were grouping this deal by the current state and what we've just updated it from. And you can see we've updated it from stage 3 to stage 5. Okay, so anytime I make a change in Pipedrive that moves my deal from one of these stages to stage 5, we're going to fire this, but only then. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit save, and now I'm going to run this thing and show you what we're looking like. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to wait for new data. I'm going to come into Pipedrive. All right, and you can see my deal right now is an invoice sent. It's in that 5th stage. I'm going to move this back to demo scheduled. I'm going to come to make, and you can see we just fired this automation, but it got caught here at our filter. And the reason it got caught is we moved it down from invoice scheduled or invoice sent to demo scheduled. Okay, so we fired it, but we didn't create a new Stripe invoice or anything like that. But if I run this again, and this time move it from our demo scheduled stage to our invoice sent stage, well, now we can come to Pipedrive. We can see we cleared the filter. We created a customer in Stripe. We created a price for the invoice in Stripe. We then created an invoice and finalized it. And then we sent it automatically to that client so that they can pay us. All right, so now if I come into Stripe and I come to customers, you can see I've created automatically here a new customer with the email associated with that deal back in Pipedrive. All right. Here's my invoice right here that I've made. I can click into that. And you can see all the details here. So I've billed it to Alex at this email. I've got my billing details here, my address, Sesame Street. We're in US dollars. The due date is in 7 days, right there. We've got a little memo here, and then here's the breakout, $24.95. So again, we multiply by 100 to make this $2,495 and not $24.95. All right. You can see down here, we also have a log of these events. And so this is why I really like Stripe is you can see we created a new payment, and then we attach that to our invoice. We finalized that invoice, and then we sent it to my Yahoo email. Okay. Now, one thing to call out here is if I go to my Yahoo email, I won't see this invoice because I'm in test mode. But if I turn test mode off and make that API call at the end of the workflow, this will automatically send to my email or whoever's email you're attaching to it. All right, so that's what we've done so far. That's the first part of our client onboarding workflow. Okay, so now that we have our invoice sent to our customer, we're going to build our second automation here, and that is only going to trigger when that customer or that client actually pays that invoice. Okay, so we're not going to do anything for that 7 days while we wait for their payment. Once they pay us, we're going to trigger our next workflow where we're going to have them schedule an introductory call with us by using our Calendly link. We're going to send them an introductory email with that Calendly link and a new Slack workspace for them to join. We're going to update their deal in Pipedrive to 1, and then we're going to actually create a unique Slack channel for that new client, okay? And it's all going to happen automatically. So we need to build our trigger first. So we're going to come to Stripe, and we're going to watch events. Okay, so we're going to watch events. Okay, I'm going to make a new webhook here. I'll show you how this is done. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to make sure that I'm on my correct connection. And then group, I'm going to use charge, and I'm going to do charge succeeded. Okay, so this is essentially just going to watch for any new charges that are successful, or essentially whenever that person pays that invoice, we'll trigger this workflow because that will be a successful charge. Okay, so we're gonna hit save. That'll attach the webhook for us, and we'll hit OK. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to just retrieve some information here from Stripe that we're going to need for later on in the workflow. Okay, so we're going to drop in a Stripe module, and we're going to do retrieve a customer. And again, you want to connect to your Stripe account. And then we're just going to find our customer ID. Okay, and so it's going to be this customer field right here inside of our watch events object. All right, and then I'm just going to choose select all. All right, we're going to hit OK. And again, that module is just going to pull in a bunch of our customer ID, like our email and things that we're going to use to write our email and stuff like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to retrieve our Stripe invoice. And again, this is because we want to pull in that metadata that we attached earlier. Remember earlier we attached our Pipedrive deal ID to the metadata here when we create our invoice? Well, now we want to go retrieve that. And so we're just going to do a retrieve invoice module. All right, and then our invoice ID, we're going to pull in here from our watch events module here. Okay, so we'll go get our invoice number, which will populate here in this invoice field. We'll hit OK. Now I'm going to run this just to make sure everything is working. All right, and I'm going to come back into Stripe, and I'm going to actually send this invoice manually to myself. Remember, we're in test mode. It won't automatically send that email. So I'm going to hit send invoice. All right, and so there's my invoice from Stripe. It's a test. So I'm going to pay this invoice, and that should trigger our scenario here. Okay, so I'm just going to put in some fake card detail here. And blah, blah, blah. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll hit pay. And then we'll wait for this to fire. Boom, perfect, it worked. Okay, so we watched the event. Okay, and we got that successful payment that we just paid. We retrieved a bunch of customer data here. All right, so that looks good. So we can use that later. And we also retrieved our invoice. I can show you that metadata we're pulling in right here. So under our metadata field, we have this Pipedrive deal ID. This is what we manually put into our metadata back in the first scenario. Okay, so we're pulling all our information in here from Stripe. Now we can use it all to automate the process that we need for when somebody joins as a new client. Now guys, I know this tutorial is getting a little technical and you might be struggling to follow along here. That's totally okay. I'm going to have my email linked down in the description below. I would love to work with you. If you're building a workflow that's like this, you can't get it to work, or if you're building a similar workflow that's even more complex and you can't figure it out, just hit me up. I'd love to work with you to get your project over the finish line. All right. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Okay. So the next step is we're going to add a router. All right. Because we just want a couple different things to run here. All right. And the first thing we want to run is we want to go actually pull our Calendly book a meeting link. Okay. We want to actually schedule a meeting with this client, but we want to let them choose when that first meeting will be. Okay. And to do that, we're going to use an app called Calendly. It's very simple. Just go sign up for an account. And you can create essentially a scheduling link where they can click, see your calendar, pick a slot, and they can book it on their own end. So it's very nice. And so what we're going to do is we are going to create a scheduling link. Okay. Again, go make a Calendly account. You want to attach it here with your API key. Our event type is going to be whatever event you set up in Calendly. So I have an event in Calendly called a Memberify Intro Call. It's a 30-minute meeting. You can customize it. You can do all that good stuff to it, and it'll pull in right here. I won't show you that, but I'm just going to do that right here. I'm just going to do one event you can schedule. I'm going to hit OK. All right, so that'll be good. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to write an intro email to our client. Okay, so they just paid their invoice. They got to be excited. They got to be nervous. Let's send them an email instantly to say, welcome to Memberify. Welcome to your company. Book your intro meeting here. Here's our Slack channel. Go join that. And, just kind of quash any nerves they have. Let them know that we're here for them for whatever they need. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drop in an OpenAI module. And we're going to get OpenAI to write this email for us automatically. So connect to OpenAI. And then let's see, we are going to create a chat completion. We're going to use model GPT-4o. We're going to write a new message as a user. All right. And then we got to drop in some message content here. And so I've written a prompt here that we're going to use to write the email for our new clients. And essentially it's your professional client onboarding liaison. You will be composing professional emails to new clients. Be accommodative and friendly. And you'll be writing emails to new clients who have just paid a deposit to work with us. So be warm and friendly. Introduce them to our company and get them scheduled for a meeting, which we'll be using Calendly to schedule. I will be giving you the client's name to incorporate into the email. I will also be giving you a Calendly link that you will attach to the email, which you will use to book their intro call. Prompt them to schedule a meeting when it works best for them in a friendly tone. Tell them to reach out to us if they need any help or have any questions. I will include my contact info for reference that you can use in the email if you need. I will also be giving you a Slack link that you should use to invite the user to join our Slack workspace. Okay? And so then I will dynamically pull in the client name, the Calendly link that we make, and then here's our Slack link. This is just our kind of static set Slack link to join our workspace. All right, here's all my contact information. And then I give it some rules. Very importantly here, we want to write this email in HTML format, okay? And the reason we do that is because when we drop into Gmail to send these emails automatically, it's going to be really, really ugly if we don't drop into Gmail in HTML. So Gmail can read HTML and make it format very nicely. If you don't do this, it's going to be one long text string. It's going to be super ugly. All right, so we want to write this in HTML format. Make the formatting pretty. Include line breaks in between paragraphs. Don't include a subject line. I'll provide that. And then only include the contact information that I've given you. Make sure it's formatted nicely. Okay. And then I give it an example of an email that it should write. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste this prompt here into OpenAI back in our scenario right here in the message content. Okay. And then I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So give it some space and stuff like that. All right. And then I'm going to dynamically pull in the client's name, so who we should be addressing this email to. All right. And we're going to pull that in here from our Stripe module. Any of them should work as long as you can get a customer name. So I'm going to pull in the customer name dynamically. And then our Calendly link, we're going to make right here in this module. Okay, so I'm going to attach our booking URL there for ChatGPT to include. All right. And that should be good to go. Now I'm going to give it tokens here of 0, just so it can kind of make it as long as it needs. I'm going to hit OK. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a Gmail module. And this is where we're going to actually send an email. Right, so I'm going to send an email. You want to connect to your Gmail account. All right. We're going to add a recipient of this email. And we're going to pull that in dynamically from our Stripe modules. Okay, so customer email. Subject, I'm just going to do welcome to Memberify with their name. So it'll be a little personalized, exclamation point. Then the content is going to be whatever ChatGPT writes for us here. So this message content. And again, that will be in HTML. And that should be good. So I'm going to hit OK. All right. So we are going to create a Calendly link. We're going to type up a welcome email that will include that Calendly link as well as our Slack link. And we're going to send them a friendly message, basically welcoming them to the company. Now, the next step we want to do is we want to update our deal back in Pipedrive to 1. So the way Pipedrive works is I can set this to 1 and boom, we get this cool little GIF. We just close the deal. And that's just kind of good process in Pipedrive. Okay, so I'm going to reopen this just so it's not 1. But in our scenario here, we want to automatically update this deal once they pay their invoice to 1. So to do that, I'm going to just drop in a Pipedrive module here. I'm going to hit update a deal. Make sure you're connected to your Pipedrive account. All right, and then deal ID. This is why we attached the metadata back in the beginning of this video, in the first scenario. Because now we need to reference this deal ID so we know which deal to update to 1. All right, and since we're not pulling in any of this information in this scenario, we're pulling it all in this scenario. We need to use this metadata from our invoice in Stripe to basically tell Make which deal to update in Pipedrive. So to do that, we're going to go to Deal ID, and then we're going to come to Retrieve an Invoice module, and we're going to come down to Metadata right here. And you can see we've got our little metadata field here that we made, Pipedrive Deal ID, which is 15. And so now we know which deal to update to 1. And then we're going to come down here, and we're just going to update the status of the deal to 1. Now, again, this is Pipedrive specific. You might want to move this to a different stage in whatever CRM you're using or a different Airtable database, however you're managing it. But this is how you would trigger that. All right, and so we're going to hit OK. All right. And then the last thing we want to do is we want to create a new Slack channel. So in Slack, I want to create a specific private channel for that new client so that whenever they join Slack, when they click that link in the email, I can move them into a private channel that's already made for us. All right, and so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in a Slack module, and I'm just going to choose Create a Channel, I think it's called. Create a channel, connect to Slack, and we need to give the channel a name. Okay, and now this is a little finicky because in Slack, if I want to create a new channel, well, you can see that anything I type in here with spaces, it adds a dash. And so this won't work if there's spaces in your name. Okay, you got to have these dashes in there. And so if you look back here, you know, it's kind of annoying because we've got all this great information from Stripe, all these cool fields, but none of them are really great for a name of a Slack channel, and they all have spaces in it. So I could do like my name, like just create a Slack channel for my name, but there's a space in it. I don't want to do a bunch of weird formatting. And so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to drop in an OpenAI module right before it. And again, I'm going to create a completion, and we're just going to choose a basic model. So 4.0, and again, we're going to do user, and I'm going to say create a Slack channel name for me based off this client's name. I'll feed in the name of the client here, and then I'll just say make sure there are no spaces. Anything that would be a space should be replaced by a dash. The name must be less than 80 characters. And then I'll give it an example. So my name that I'm going to feed into it, or our customer name here, should be something like that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to hit OK. So that'll make the Slack channel name for us. And then we'll just come over here and we'll just map our actual name here to our Slack name. I'm going to make it private. All right, so I'll hit OK. I'm going to hit save. And now we're ready to test the entire workflow. Okay, so I'm going to come back to my first scenario here. I'm going to hit run. All right, I'm going to come to Pipedrive, and I'm going to update my deal from invoice sent back down the ladder to demo scheduled. All right, and we can see that our automation fired, but we didn't clear this filter. Okay, so we're not creating an invoice, and that's because we moved down the stages in Pipedrive. All right, so that's working. That little insurance policy is working. I'm going to run it again, and this time I'm going to actually send the invoice. Okay, and remember, this is the only thing I have to do to run this entire automation is in Pipedrive. Just move this deal to invoice sent, and we will basically launch this entire workflow. Okay, so I'll change that. We can see our automation running, and we created a new customer. We created our payment item. We created the invoice. We finalized it, and then we sent that invoice to the client all automatically. So I'm going to come to Stripe. I'm going to hit refresh here. And we can see that we've created a new client or a new customer. We can see our payment amount here. We can see the invoice that we've created, okay, with all the associated details. And we can see that we've also sent this invoice to the client's email. All right, now again, since we're in test mode up here, this won't actually send, but once you turn that off and you're in live real world, this will send automatically to their email. All right, so this is looking good. I'm going to manually send this invoice to the client just so we can trigger the second part of our workflow. We're going to hit pay. And before I pay, I'm going to come to my second workflow here. I'm going to hit run. Okay, so now we're watching for new payments. And remember, you won't have to keep hitting run every time in the real world. Once you're done building your scenario, you'll just toggle this scenario to on right here all the time, and it will just automatically look for new payments all the time. Anyways, we're going to come here and we're going to pay our invoice. Right, put in my fake data here. I wish this would work in real life. That would be beautiful. But it doesn't. Anyways, I'm going to hit pay. And we're going to come watch this automation run back over here. Okay, so we picked it up. We made a Calendly link. We're currently writing an email. We're sending an email. We updated our deal to 1 in Pipedrive. And then we created a new Slack channel. Okay, so firstly, I'll come to Pipedrive. We can see that we've automatically changed our deal to 1. Okay, so that's perfect. Then I will come to my email, and we can see the email that has been sent to us. We can see it right here. And here it is. So, dear Alex, we are thrilled to welcome you to the Member 5 family. We truly appreciate your deposit and cannot wait to start this journey together. I'm your dedicated liaison. I'm here to ensure that your onboarding experience is smooth and enjoyable. Here is a link to your Calendly where you can schedule a call. All right, so you can see here's our intro call, and I can, as the client, pick any time I want. All right, so that's working well. I can also join our Slack workspace because I put our Slack link there. And so boom, I'm brought straight to Slack. So that's good. If you have any questions or need assistance, don't worry, just contact me here. We're looking forward to speaking with you soon. This is looking beautiful. Again, it's all formatted beautifully because remember, back in OpenAI, we told it to write in HTML. Okay, and that's why when we send through Gmail, we get this pretty formatting here. All right, so that's looking good. The last thing we need to go check is our Slack channel. And we can see that we've made a new Slack channel right here with the name of our client, okay? And then once they join by clicking the link in the email, then we can actually add them to this channel. And that's it, guys. So again, the only thing anyone ever has to do to launch this whole workflow is just change their deal from demo scheduled to invoice sent, and this whole workflow runs automatically. This saves you a ton of time and hassle and manual labor. So if you guys like this video, go down and smash that like button for me. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, consider subscribing. That would be awesome. If you guys have any questions, get down in the comments and let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Let me know also what you think about this Hawaiian shirt. I think it'll be a fan favorite, but I never know. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.